It's the Progcast. We're here. We're here to talk about more metal because at this point, what else can we do?
Broadcast.
Yeah.
What are we talking about, Manny?
So today we're going to go through Earthside, All We Knew and Ever Loved, which I think is going to be a really cool follow-up to last time because it's what happens when you take Tesseract and give it to a bunch of classical music nerds.
Yeah, pretty much.
That feels accurate to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They kind of ramp it up, too. That's the best part, eh?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. All right, hit it.
So, yeah, buttons.
Can you pause right here for 1 second? Like, I know it's only like, it's so...
No, that's appropriate.
It is appropriate. Yeah. I think there's so many moments in this song that happens. I love, though, whenever that chord hits, it, for some reason, reminds me of Phantom of the Opera.
It is. I mean, I keep describing this as a 9-minute prog metal organ concerto with 2 drummers.
Honestly, I think, Manny, you'll see what I'm talking about, but, like, this whole video, for me, like, it comes very reminiscent of, like, a From Software game where, like, has this very mysterious, like, it has this very suggested background. Like, there's this, I don't know how to, like, describe it, but it has, like, this background of everything where it's just got these, like, people frozen in time, and it almost looks like a crypt, and then you have these 2 figures that awaken, very much like a From Software, like, main character. There's always some kind of awakening, and there's, like, a background that suggests something had happened before. And just listening to this video, it's just like they designed the storytelling of the music to correlate to everything about the video so perfectly that I feel like I have a whole story in my head about it. It's brilliant.
Yeah, and that's so. I know that the video itself won a whole bunch of awards, or at least an award at some film festival somewhere. And in my opinion, this is a really, really good example of how to make instrumental music that feels like it's going somewhere. Because it's clear that these guys are super, super conversant with film music, with just the craft of traditional composition, and also are super into modern metal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that.
And yeah, and you know, they've had Dan Tompkins do guest spots on their songs twice. They definitely have heard Tesseract once or twice. You can hear that influence all over the place in this music.
Yeah, All right, keep this going.
Oops.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No muting.
Yeah, muting doesn't help.
So I'm going to stop it there. One thing I love about this song is that they keep doing these big bombastic film scoring moments, like that big organ chord, like what just happened there. There's the moment at the ending, at the end, that's kind of a similar idea. They keep doing it, but it feels so good every time because they keep earning it. They're not just going from like big bombastic thing to big bombastic thing.
Right, and it's interesting you say that they're earning it, because I feel like with this kind of stuff, and like it's very minimalistic way of doing things. It's almost like there's, what we talked about last time with Tesseract and War of Being, how there's these peaks and valleys as we go. We're only 2 minutes into the song, and there's already been so many peaks and valleys, and that like I don't look at it as if it's all part of the same like range of hills or range of mountains, but they're all different mountains that each are being climbed in a certain way. So yeah, the idea of like they're earning each way, like each checkpoint, is a really interesting way of looking at it.
And there is something of I'm sorry, but there is something of minimalism to this, because it's not like they're not doing a whole lot of development. They're a lot of the ideas in this song just kind of sit there and let you kind of experience them for a minute, 2 minutes at a time.
Yeah.
Brendan.
Yes, I think that I see what you're saying as well. Like, it definitely feels like there's like this earned thing. I don't even know how to describe it. Like, what you're saying is like they're earning it. And it's different from last week, because last week, I think the whole point of the song is like we're demonstrating an excellence in composition and showing really technical proficiency for the sake of it. But in this is the technical proficiency for the sake of storytelling, is the way I'm interpreting it. Because every single note, because I see it's very evident, you're right, that there's a very like a film scorey presentation here, because everything is serving a point. I think another key difference for me is that this lacks any type of lyrical composition, where last week there was lyrics where you could extrapolate from and really interpret. This, the instruments are the only thing you have to go on. So you have to kind of let your subconscious do the work for you. And in conjunction with this music video, every section of it is so perfectly detailed, like the opening of the door, the awakening of these two statues, the conversation they're having with their eyes. It's all so clearly defined in my eyes. Like there's something going on between them that's not inherently clear to us, but it's their whole purpose of being, and it's evident in this composition to me.
Yeah, and they're like they've done a couple of videos that are always very like artsy, but in a good way, not in a pretentious way. Which it works super well, because their music is so film scorey. Even without visuals, you can kind of imagine a movie happening with basically every one of their songs.
Yeah,
I could see that.
And it's funny you say, you talk about it's not as lyrical. It's also like there is very lyrical instrumental music. We'll talk about intervals at some point. That's extremely lyrical music, even though it doesn't have words. Even the melodies in this are more. There are foreground elements, but there's never anything that's like, here is the melody that you will be experiencing for the next 5 minutes.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think it's just there's the inherent narrative that you have to dissect as you go along because of the music.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So let's. I love this shot.
Oh, that is a beautiful shot. Yeah.
It is also super. Mm-hmm. What's that area with the dragons in? I don't remember which of the Dark Souls games feels like this.
Like Anor Londo.
No. And Farum Azula from.
Farum Azula from Elden Ring.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. This is Archdragon Peak, is what you're thinking.
Yeah, Archdragon Peak. There it is.
Exactly.
I can see that.
Yeah, Sam.
They're doing so much with just a couple of notes on the organ.
Yeah.
And the
And
background
those,
ambient music as well.
yeah.
Yeah, the ambient synths and the sounds that are going on.
I don't know if that's a synth or one of those, what do you call it, the water phone?
Oh, here, you know what? Go back a little bit.
That could be playing that old screen door, my man. You just open
Yeah,
and close
exactly.
and don't oil that
creaky
shit.
door. Yeah, play it.
That's your old creaky door, my guy.
Maybe. There's a specific instrument that they use in horror movies a lot. That's like a bunch of rods that you
Yeah.
put
Yeah,
water
it's a bunch of
in,
rods
and
in
then
it.
you
Yeah.
play with it.
I've
yeah.
used
I think it's
I've
called
used a
water
couple
phone.
of them, and they're so much fun.
We
Yeah.
could just pretend it's a squeaky door because, like, how
It
cool
could
would
be.
that be if you're like,
I know that like Tesseract, at least before they recorded Sonder, they went around and recorded a bunch of random sounds that they used all over the record, like screeching doors and wind blowing and stuff like that.
And that's good
It's not
sound
unheard
design.
of.
that's
Yeah.
art, my friend.
That is art. Yeah, it's fun to hear these like screeching sounds happening in the background where like what you're saying, all it is 3 notes on the organ. And there's so much more happening around it that really adds to just what's going on.
If I
And
may.
I love.
Sure.
Yeah, no, you may.
So when you talk about that 3, like, I'm going to go back to Dark Souls for a second because this music video is so evocative of that. When you say like just those 3 notes, there's one song in particular I can think of, and that's Gwen's theme. Because what is that? It's
Ooh.
literally 3 piano keys, like pling, pling, plung.
Yep.
But the second you hear it, something primal escapes out of your soul. Like there's a YouTube video of people who are like watching the ending of Dark Souls 3 and like fighting the soul of Cinder, and they didn't know what it was.
Oh yeah, and then the second
then
phase of it happens.
The second phase happens, and then all they heard was pling, pling, plong, and
Yep.
people were going nuts. All you need is 3 notes to evoke something strong, and
Yeah.
it's genius. All you need is 3 notes.
It's
What?
so interesting. Sorry, Manny.
Well,
it's
no,
so-
I hadn't.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I hadn't thought of like the Dark Souls comparison until you brought it up, but it's got me thinking about. I mean, it's kind of the leitmotif idea. I mean, that is literally a leitmotif of a piece of music that's associated with a character, but even. Yeah, just the link between small pieces of music and the way we imagine things is super cool idea to explore in non like explicitly scoring like film or game scoring music.
Yeah. Well, it's, something to add to that since you mentioned with game scoring and everything. Something I did for part of my research when I was finishing my master's degree was in regards to the way that video game music is able to evoke certain emotions. And based off, the idea of all you have to do is hear just a couple notes of something and something that is so memorable that it unlocks this, in the case of the Soul of Cinder or Gwen's theme, there's this primal just feeling that erupts when you hear it. And when you're fighting the Soul of Cinder in Dark Souls 3, it's a moment of fear, if anything, in my case. But you look at things like that. You look at
some
what's
of the
another good
most-
one? Oh, Sephiroth's theme from Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
You
So,
hear
I mean-
the screeching violins, like jump, jump, jump. Right. Yada-ba-dum-ba-dum. You're run for your fucking life.
Yep, you were
Right?
gonna have a bad day.
Yeah,
Bad
and
day.
it's this thing that what I did with my presentation when I was doing all this was I asked my professors and the rest of my class to close their eyes as they were listening to these themes because most of them didn't have the context until after that. But I asked them to just close their eyes and try to visualize a scenario that occurs when hearing themes like that or hearing some themes from like the Pokemon games or and gathering what they were talking about and trying to understand and figure out how certain themes evoke these different emotions and how they fit into the context of an actual visual like form of media. So with the video for Earthside, right? It's all it is the simple just boom, 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 as these 2 characters are making their descent down this gigantic cliffside. And there's nothing else going on. It's just them making their walk. It's this feeling of almost simplicity in a very calming manner.
Well, and expectation, especially with those creepy sounds, the screeching in the background. It's something's going to happen, but they're not going to give it to you right away. And that's one thing I love about this song in particular, but a lot of their work. They're not afraid. There's so much metal that's just it feels like it has to go balls to the wall all the time, every time. But they really know how to just give you a couple of notes and tell you that that's all you're getting for now.
I mean, I would argue you always want. I think it depends on the time and place. Like sometimes a band's whole deal is just that, like the one thing all the time. But I do agree.
Oh yeah, and that's fine.
I think that you're right. I think that it's built. It's the building of anticipation. It's that knowing that something's going to happen. The simplicity, the overall kind of like just simplicity of the notes, but then in the background is that like that screen door. It's just something that's building the anticipation. Like in a horror movie where you're going to open up the door and something's behind there, but do you really? What's really going to happen next? It's a promise of something to come.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Why don't we get the music video going and see where else it leads us?
Carry on with the adventure. I don't know what it is about this part where the guitars come in, but this reminds me of Skyrim.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Very Dwemer ruins.
Yeah.
And once again, it's the same little motif.
Yep.
That little guitar transition.
It's
that little piano transition.
It almost hits you harder than any of the big bombastic thing. Like especially at the ending, there's this massive organ chord that feels like the payoff for this entire thing. Mm-hmm. But just everything gets taken away, and it's just a little piano.
Yeah, for me, I feel like there's this sudden creation of space that you're desperately trying to fill in your mind. And honestly, how did you not see the Dark Souls theme? Look at that. That's the walkway straight to the kiln of the first flame. Look at it. That's literally the walkway.
You're right. I just hadn't thought of it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm here for. That's why you hired me.
What I love about this and this has been brought up now, is with the transition. Manuel, could you rewind maybe about like 10 seconds into where that transition comes in? Yes, please. Just for the shot. All right, pause there.
Oh,
there's
so
that.
Perfect.
It's so perfect. What I love about it is that there's this. I don't know if I can call it brief. I might just call it like immediate moment of not rest but dissipation. With the previous, with the synth coming in before the piano comes in, that immediate moment of dissipation for that to just separate and let you sort of enjoy, I guess, enjoy what's around you and enjoy. And in this case, with the video, just you're witnessing now that you're in a very different area, something far more vast, and it's so interesting that talking about with bombastic music and like with metal, normally with metal, momentum shifts tend to sort of turn off a listener occasionally, depending on how that momentum shifts. Because, if it goes from something super bombastic to something like super quiet, it can be seen as awesome. But for a lot of people, it's just like, okay, well, it takes a completely different shift. I don't really, But in this case, nothing happens other than a piano just comes back in, right? Or a piano comes in. But it's in that dissipation that the momentum is still there. If you think of it like a nucleus almost, the momentum is still there. It never leaves.
Well, I'd actually argue that it actually ups the momentum in a very, very clever way, because if you notice what's happening here is for the first time in a little while, we now have a steady rhythm. So whereas before it was kind of these very
Well, I mean, even with the guitar, there's a steady
Yeah.
rhythm there, right?
Well, there's a steady rhythm, but it came to a resting spot. It was the
It does come to a resting spot, yeah.
Right
Yeah.
here, it's starting with the Bach motor rhythm. It's just
Yeah.
and that it takes. If there's one thing I would want a composer to learn from something like this, it's that taking things away can be even more impactful than adding things. But they take everything away, but now suddenly something's happening. And what happens, you'll hear in a second.
Well,
Let
I
me
would
just
argue
roll it.
that the momentum really hasn't changed because it's still that sense, especially when you see the shot, that this passageway is here. I'd
Yeah.
argue it's a continuation of the exact same momentum because it's still this what's going to happen now. It's this almost Lovecraftian sense of the unknown where you're about to enter into that you're coming into the familiar of these structures and these things, and now all of a sudden there's an open doorway cascading light outward. That's the definition of the unknown, man. We're about to challenge what we've already established as a visual logic of this world and of the sound, and that's what I think the transition is at that point. It's the exact because when you think about it, if you take the floor away from you suddenly, it's subtle, but then you're still going to fall. And the momentum is carrying you down into the depths of wondering what's going to happen to you now. When are you going to hit the ground?
Yeah, and it's become, instead of being washy, now suddenly it's become focused anticipation. Instead of
Exactly.
like, ooh, spooky, it's now, oh, something's about to happen.
Yeah. Like, again, going back to the whole idea of development in like a horror film, right? You have your exposition, and then eventually you're like, okay, where's the spooky, scary bad guy? We need a spooky, scary bad guy. And as they're slowly building that, you're going, okay, now I can focus because now we're getting somewhere.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so they're about to do something that I love, which is it's development, but it's not necessarily thematic development because it's the same exact melody. They're just changing the instrument, and that simple little change takes it to a whole different place. Let's take a listen. Right, so all they did was add an instrument doing the same exact thing, but it's an organ,
Yeah.
and organs mean something.
Yeah. Well, I feel like,
think- Oh, no, go ahead.
sorry, Brendan. I think the thing with, the organ coming in, yeah, the organ does mean something. The piano means something. The piano adds to, these two characters. They're making their descent into this completely new area. They're unsure of what's going on, but they're they're pacing themselves as they move forward, gathering what's going on around them. The organ comes in, and you're like, ah!
I'm kind of wondering now because, organs on their own have this Stravinsky called them the beast that never breathes, which he didn't like organs, but I think it is a beast.
It is.
It's a monstrous instrument with a huge sound that really it kind of puts your hair on end, right?
Yeah.
But I wonder how much of what we think of when we hear an organ has to do with the fact that they're still associated so much with churches.
Considering
like,
how
at some
gothic
point-
of an instrument they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At one point, trombones were associated with angelic things, which is really silly to us now, but it's because those were one of the main instruments that got used in churches because they were the only brass instrument that had fine pitch control.
Yeah.
So when we hear an organ come in, it's like, oh, we are now in a cathedral, in a Gothic space, right?
Yeah,
I think
it's
that's
you know, I don't want to bring it up any more than we have to, but I think using From Software is a great comparison to what's been going on, because it feels very much like when the organ hits, it feels like something out of Bloodborne.
yeah. Well, that's
Yeah.
a very Gothic game.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, it's an incredibly Gothic game.
By definition is that. And I think that using these instruments, like, it's like you say, like, it's evocative of a very existing, like, they take advantage of a existing human understanding of what these are for. Like, if you look at the church organ, like, what are most people going to associate with it? The general population is going to think about going to church on Sunday and thinking of hymns, because churches and organs have always gone together. But if you go further back, you can also recall that having like a pipe organ would equally be placed at something like a traveling circus. It's all it's all the delivery, because the composition of the organ is big, it's dramatic, it's Gothic. But like, if you have this light, jaunty tune with the exact same instrument, you think of like a literally a circus, like that do 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 do. It's decidedly a poignant delivery of an existing preconception of it. And I would believe the trumpet. Well, you said trumpet or trombone was in
Trombone.
churches?
Trombone. Yeah.
Because if you look at the Catholic, if you look at the Catholic stories, the one thing that we know about the Archangel Gabriel is that he blows a trumpet. That's like the one thing that's associated with that character. It would make perfect sense to have that kind of thing there. And
and you couldn't use trumpets in churches because trumpets didn't get valves until much later, so you couldn't play church music on a trumpet.
Because you're taking away the original stated purpose of it, which is to herald in something informative, versus trying to deliver the story of the religion, which requires pitch control. So it's completely understandable that you would need to devolve, and not devolve, but diversify into that type of instrument for it.
Yeah. But yeah, let's keep moving.
Carry on.
Please.
We can hear them bringing in some percussion in the background now, doing the exact same thing. Yeah, I don't know why I didn't think of Dark Souls before. This is the killing of the first flame.
This is basically killing the first flame.
I mean, well, that one isn't. That specifically for me invokes Dark Souls 3. Oh God, where is it? The Yorm the Giant specifically.
Yes. That underground area. I don't know what it was
my
called.
favorite boss fight in the whole game.
Yep, that is quite literally where you find Yorm. And I think, if we're pausing here, one of the main things that that I really liked is, if we're gonna we look at it. I wanted to talk about this from the last one, but like completely forgot. The sudden abruptness. There's clearly there's a narrative that's going on that it's not clearly stated verbally, but it's implied. And I think that's why it's evocative of Dark Souls to me, because the concept that game takes place with is this storytelling by exposition, not implicitly telling the audience. This is telling me a story, that something is going on. Like, the second that they finally get into this seemingly like holy place or sacred place, the world immediately reacts to it. Like, it does not want them there. It's trying to get rid of people. And it's for some reason retaliating directly against these two characters. And now we're seeing a divergence between a personality where maybe one is being projected, but one of these seems to be more in tune of how the world works, and maybe the other one's a little naive. I don't know, but like it's and that little, the real thing that sells it for me is just that symbol. It's that sudden abruptness of the symbol, that little suggestion of danger. Things are clearly going to go wrong. And
I think like I don't know if it's a symbol or just like a sheet of metal they're hitting.
I think it. I don't. Yeah, it might be a like a ride on the bell, but it might just be a sheet of metal.
There's such an abrasive, brighter tone to it. So I'm like, I don't know, unless it's like a super dark freaking ride. Because
it's obvious to me that if we're playing a screen door, we have someone playing some aluminum shot siding for the roof.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, this is film music. Film music. The percussion is the bread and butter of film music, and they use everything. They use sheets of metal.
Use everything, whatever,
hit it with whatever.
Want.
Yeah.
Bodywork meets metal, man.
Pretty much.
Yeah. But and like musically, I love this so much because it is a classic trick. It's an absolutely classic trick where you do something and you do it over and over and over again, and you grow it and you build things around it. But the core idea never changes. It's just done so well here. And like there's ways to do development in a more traditional classical way where you take the melody and you start changing it and transposing it and stretching it and shrinking it and all that. But I love this because it gives you something to latch onto and then changes the context around it. And it works so well with the visuals here because we've gone from anticipation, little piano, to things are happening and this world is no longer stable and it really wants to kick these people out, and there's percussion happening and there's, the organ, and it's so cool.
I think it's that our fundamental, because this song has been teaching us the logic of the world up to this point. And then all of a sudden, the real jarring sensation for me is that now all of a sudden what I think I understand has been completely challenged and taken away from me and making me adjust to this now sudden cacophony of things abruptly changing. And just the way the music, just first off, the building up to the organ, the sudden abruptness telling me that we're in a very important place. Then the subtle introduction of the symbols to suggest that things are about to go wrong. It's that sudden anticipation, that sudden danger that something is very wrong is now happening, and that sudden dash to getting through these gates. And now we're in a world where we have monolithic beings that are now literally trapped under other monoliths. And if people have already seen this video, when you see what's on the inside, it gets even more bonkers as to what is really going on with the world.
And also, like, working off of kind of cultural implication, that's a Colosseum.
It is a Colosseum, yes.
Yes, it is.
Like, the Colosseum has connotations of violence. It has connotations of the ancient, of a place that was very culturally important to a culture that no longer exists. This is, just like the organ, it tells you something about what's going to be in there.
Let's go see what's in there.
Stop right there.
Oh, that moment.
Oh, I love when that happened.
It's perfect.
Also, here comes, like, this is the first moment in this song where we've heard proper drumming.
Yeah.
And I'm interested in what you have to say as we get through the last couple minutes of this song, Yusuf, as our resident drummer, because this song has two drummers on it. It's their regular drummer, whose name I have unfortunately forgotten, and Bart Kolstad of Leprous.
Who is a monster.
Who is absolutely a monster.
Bart is a monster. Yeah.
But let's talk about. I mean, nope.
Let's
yeah.
rewind about 15 seconds because I want to talk about something here.
Yeah.
So, play it. It's this subtlety in the drums that just build up out of nowhere, and then hell, even go back maybe like 10 more seconds. Go to just about where the drums begin. So the character comes into the Coliseum. He's seeing these two gigantic figures fighting that are tied to chains, right? And it's that moment where the ground starts to become different and his body is turning a different color where the drums come in. There's this subtlety in there. So play from there.
Let's hear.
So it's there. The metal
so
is
here
there,
it's still
right?
film scoring percussion.
Yeah, it's slowly progressing, developing, and here it is.
And
it's
then
right there, yeah. It's incredibly subtle that it's setting up something. So
it's almost. I wonder if they used that kick drum, if they filtered it in some way to make it sound like an orchestral bass drum, and then took the filter off of it at this moment.
I think so. There's definitely an orchestral bass drum before this, as the creature is in this new world or new part of the world, and like making their way towards the Colosseum. There is an orchestral bass drum in there. You can tell by the resonance. With this, I think it's an actual kick drum. The dampening on that sounds like it's an actual kick drum, just the deadening of it.
But you don't hear that snap of like a classic metal kick.
No,
until like.
Yeah, here's the orchestra. There.
Yeah, there's where it starts,
it
right? You start hearing that click.
Exactly, and this is what I mean about the subtlety, is that it's all these different sounds that are, going around as this creature is making their way in. And finally, in this moment, it's all these sounds coming together and becoming, this is going to sound crazy, but if anything, it's becoming refined, much like the body of the character is. Because I just, on assumption, the creature is made of what looks like stone. And there's this transformations happening to their body. Their body is becoming refined just as the drums are, where everything's coming together. It's a completely different, new way of experiencing it.
And I think, amazingly, it's still the same music.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's still the same thing.
We haven't changed since that piano came in. 2 and change minutes ago, it's still that same exact melody.
Yeah.
I would say my interpretation of it is that what we're looking at here, the drum for me serves the purpose of a transition, because if you look specifically at the entrance of this creature, it's coming in, and if you really especially look at how the gladiators are fighting, they're not fighting in a way that makes sense because they're hitting each other with like the flats of their swords. The idea is that maybe this is a point of awakening. It's realizing that what's happening is no longer the world that it once understood, and now it's coming to a realization that things are out of date. They're just broken and crumbled and ruined. Now it has to change. It's evolving into something new. I'm seeing the drum as the signal to the awakening of the music. It's exactly the same, but it's evolving. It's turning into something that is more than it previously was, building layers upon things. And especially with the visuals of the music video itself, the drumming is perfectly in time, in perfect step with the consumption of this creature. It's overcome with this transition. And then just the running up to the steps, the perfect moment at the end of the shot where the drums and everything explodes into more traditional, more clean cut things. And
well, there's that monster drum fill as he's jumping through the door, and that's really a moment. He has now broken something.
I argue that he's realized something. Because when you think about it, these two creatures are going down these steps. They're going something where it's almost like a predetermined path, a promised path, like they've awakened to do something. And then when this one was so desperate to get down here, saw what had happened, it didn't even stay. It saw what had happened. It was overcome with this abrupt realization because, again, really, if you look at the gladiators, they're chained up to this incomprehensible force above them, and they're not even hitting each other with weapons correctly anymore. They're not even properly fighting. Like they're going through the motions of something that doesn't even matter anymore. And as you'll see as the video goes on, it's completely going to change everything about this world.
That's
Yeah.
that transition. So that's as soon as he breaks through that door, the music that we started with the piano is now gone.
Yep.
And we are in a different way. It's almost like this post-rock kind of heavy grinding sort of chaos, and then that drumming.
I think it's because the tone and the narrative has shifted, because we've gone from this almost pilgrimage going into this subterranean holy site, or whatever you want to call it, has evolved into the realization that not everything as it is. And now we see the music purposely, to me, and how this is like a corruption of some kind that's now spreading.
Yeah.
And just it's perfect. Like, you're right. The music is not even close to what we had in the beginning, because it's not that world anymore. It's not that understanding anymore. If anything, the way the characters are moving is in perfect alignment with it. Like, to me, the character that's now being corrupted, he's moving in perfect synchronization with this corruption. While the other character is he's still trying to cling to something that is no longer applicable to the world.
Yeah.
And then, so like, again, still though, slow slow change. Like it's still a couple of ideas that keep happening, and they keep having the context changed around them, and then this really long transition with the two drummers just doing these crazy fills.
Yeah, and that, man, you know what? I'm gonna say this. It's insane how much of an emotion that these things can evoke, and we mentioned this earlier, but there's just this gut punching feeling that happens when the orchestration comes in after that, or after the creature crashes through the door, just a like it just hits you. But with the drums, there's this whole joke that I've sort of come to appreciate as a drummer and just as someone that writes a lot of drum parts. Especially when you do like film scoring and whatnot, is that once you start going balls to the walls, that is where the insanity breaks out. That's where all hell breaks loose, and you can do whatever you want. But at the same time, it also, there's this idea of, even though drums are an unpitched instrument, there's no pitch to them necessarily. They can still assist in evoking something in the texture of the music and whatever it's working with. And you can see it a lot in, like, not necessarily horror, but for example, the movie Birdman with Michael Keaton that came out a bunch of years ago.
Man, I love that.
Antonio Sanchez did that whole score with just percussion instruments, right? And there's a way to feel about that. You listen to certain pieces in the classical world, or even more commonly in wind band music, because I came from that world. You look at guys like John Mackey, who, when he starts ramping it up with the percussion parts he writes, you're like, okay, fuck, shit's about to go down. But, like, you don't know what and you don't know when. You just know that shit's about to go down. Something I really appreciate with this song is it makes you wait. It really makes you wait for what's about to happen. You know it's going to happen, you just don't know when. And I bring this up.
And it's been making you
yeah,
wait.
and
like it has these little moments of payoff, and then, all right, we're going to have another 2 minutes of waiting before you get the next one.
Mm-hmm. And I bring this up because in the part of the video, just before he crashes through the door, there's just this bombastic drum solo, basically, that's going down, right? But from first listen, when I was taking a listen to this, I was like, okay, yeah, it's just 4 bars of that, and then you crash through the door. But then you realize there's a little more exposition as this creature's getting towards the door, because the other creature on the other side is still there. Like, is he ever coming back? I don't know. Is using more of a trance almost of like, all hope is gone. There's no way of getting through. Whereas, as the drums are ramping up, it's this moment of, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. We're not going to tell you what's coming, but it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. And it forces you to wait for those 8 bars of the fill until the payoff, when he just crashes through that door and everything, Pandora's box basically opens up, is how I like to see it.
It's a good interpretation to it.
Oh.
I think it's also that, like, it's just forlorn because, like, its whole world is slowly no longer existing. Like, the purpose of its existence is gone. And as the music is changing, the only reason it starts moving again is because it sees that everything that it once was is about to be completely corroded away, and now it has to do something. It's forcing you as a listener to catch up and, like, what's going to happen. It's going to drag you kicking and screaming along the composition, whether you like it or not, and it's going to force you to see something at the end of it that it's one way or the other. We're going to get to the end of this journey, and I feel like the song does a great job of kicking and screaming you along the way.
Yeah, kicking and screaming for sure. And even after the gate is broken open, and the other creature that couldn't get through the gate realizes, oh my God, you're back. Wait, why are you running away? What's going on? What's happening here?
You were not red before. This is not
red
good.
Before. What happened to you? And there's no dialogue.
I will chase you now.
And there's no dialogue, but there's this beauty in the music that sort of makes way and is a placeholder for that lack of dialogue that builds up the emotion of what's going to happen between these two characters. And if we can rewind a little bit, Manny, to as the chase is going on, as they're climbing up the stairs. So before they get to the monolith, and that shot, by the way, where the monolith starts to turn red, gorgeous. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So like here?
A little back, maybe. Yeah, I think here.
Yeah, that's a good spot.
Yeah, here's a good spot. Again, this idea of they're forcing you to wait, right? It's building, it's forcing you to wait for what's about to happen. And it's, and in the video, sorry, this is my last point, but, in that video, it's like the character's still chasing, but even that moment of, oh my God, he's so close, you can catch up to him. It's that slow motion moment of him jumping towards the character and still not being able to reach him. Like, there's something that's going to happen, and it's not good.
Yeah. And that's like in the music, you've got these two monstrously good drummers who are basically saying, no, you can wait for us to have a little bit of fun with the toms for a bit before you get the next part.
Yeah, pretty much. Let's keep going. We're almost the tail end of this. We're at the tail end. That ending shot and the sound design perfection of smashing the stone into the red creature's face as that organ hits again.
Uh-huh. And the that last chord on the organ.
Mm-hmm. It's it's this thing where like I'll say this. I was expecting like some sort of battle between the two once they got to the top. After the chase was done. So for that all to happen, I was like, oh, interesting, but why? And the moment where, the face is smashed in and it creates this, it's this after effect now of everything starting to crumble, but in the weirdest way possible. And that things are starting to crumble, but also this new area has been opened to reveal the truth. And this character who thought, well, I've been abandoned, and now my friend is back, but different. Maybe he's the monster. In the moment of destruction, the door opens, and he realizes what's in front of him, and he goes, oh.
I think
that's the thing.
Yeah.
I think the song is almost a monument to the idea of futility. Because when you open up the area, it has the exact same corruption in it that had been leading up to this point. And I think that's what that last organ piece suggests to me. Mm-hmm. That whatever you were doing, especially the look on the creature's face, where he looks on it and he just looks in what I would presume to be horror at what is beyond the door. Because there's also, if you go back a little bit, you'll notice there's like a trail of white that leads in. and everything else is completely red except for that one little trail. Maybe it's like a nice safe place for him to interact. I don't know. But everything inside, actually, if you look even closer, I think it's a combination of the two.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna say it's so he kills the red one, and then everything gets kind of bathed in this purifying light. So you think it's gonna be, everything's gonna be fine now, and then it's not. Now there's both that white light and this just it looks like blood.
Yeah.
It is blood basically. So it's
Robot blood, yeah.
has anything been resolved? Probably not.
Or has it become something more because of the sum of its
Yeah.
parts? Like, you have the cacophony of that corruption and the build-up over the song of that solemn journey combining into one piece, and I think that's reflected here.
Yeah. It's
hard to say. I mean, it
is hard
It
to
almost
say.
feels like a Cain and Abel sort of setup with the one brother murdering the other, but I don't know what they're trying to get at with it.
I think it's about the desperation, because there's clearly an act of a chase where he does not want something to happen. For me, I almost think a battle wouldn't be appropriate, because these things just woke up. How would they be ready to, like, go into a battle? I think that these are two beings these are a struggle of fundamental forces to me, and
Yeah.
meddling in forces that they do not understand. So I think I don't know if I want to see these like average examples of whatever passes for life in this world, but the story is clear. There's a clear desperation to prevent something like this happening. And this is, to me, especially the shot here at the end, it's a compromise of the two ideals that went against each other directly. Because the world was being consumed by it. And now it's not completely consumed, but it's not completely saved either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. It yeah. I really
Powerful
don't
stuff.
know. It is incredibly powerful stuff. It's yeah, like the video alone is something to think about, and like the kind of message it provides. But the way that the song itself is written and the way it all plays out is just every little nook and cranny, you're waiting for what's going to happen. You kind of have an idea, but when it hits you, it's so much bigger than you thought it would be.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man.
And part of that's just how much they make you wait for all of it.
It's really all built on anticipation.
And then it's just abrupt. It's just this abrupt dropping in your lap of realization.
Like, honestly, just rewind to just as the chase is finished, and like a little before the purification, or who knows, maybe the darkening of the land.
Up the rock.
So right about here,
go on.
with the rock, yeah. From a theory perspective, and I think Manuel and I can have the same appreciation of this. I love in that moment, just before the very last chord, you hear that chord happen, like the chord previous to it, and you think, "Oh, that's where it's ending. It's not resolving." And it's forcing you to think, "Okay, is it going to resolve, or is it over? I guess it's over." That was dark. And again, it's that moment of suspense, that moment of making you wait for just, oh. And when it happens, you're like, oh my God, what did I just witness? It's always something I love about a good horror movie and such, or a good movie in general, or anything like that, is when they make you wait for what actually happens in the end. You see something happen, you're like, oh, okay, that happened, and there's a brief moment, and then just boom, you're like, oh my god, damn.
And I thought something I noticed that I thought was kind of interesting. He has become red himself
He has,
yes.
at this point.
I was going to touch on that because the salvation thing, the white energy, only really comes out after the sacrifice, but it taints him. It turns him. It's not completely red, especially if you look around like the arms. There is like a presence of that white, but in sacrificing himself, he's liberating the creatures below and snapping their chains with this and creating something. Maybe he's restoring them to the form of glory, but it's not. It only happens after he makes a sacrifice, which implies, was that supposed to be what they were doing all along? Was one of them always meant to betray the other? Then it creates this perfect harmony between the two elements, because below it's all the white energy, the purification, and above it's that kind of mixture of the two in that nice little trail that leads in. And I think that's symbolic of how the music is, well, I mean, of course it is, because it's the music video for it, but it's symbolic of the transition between the earlier portions of the music and the later, which could be argued are completely different structures. They're completely different components of the song. But without the other, the song would just not be what it is. They are two elements that are greater than this. The song itself is greater than the sum of its parts, but the parts are both necessary, and they have to blend in correctly.
Yeah, to a degree. I mean, it really is kind of a 3-act experience, because there's 3 distinctly different pieces of music. There's that early, very ambient stuff, and then the kind of pedal tone thing, and then this ending with the drummers and the big epic organ stuff.
Yeah,
it's a lot.
It is a lot. It's definitely a lot. How do
you quantify this into words is the real question.
Yeah. I don't know. It's Honestly, you know what, Manuel? I'm going to do this maybe after we finish recording this, when I get some time, is do like a harmonic analysis of this.
Yeah.
And just understand, from a nerd perspective, we can look at this of like how the harmony fits into what's going on in the song and how the video is a visualization of that, which is a whole thing. But from just a normal-ass, good old person perspective, Brendan is right. It is hard to put into words. There's so much happening, despite so little happening.
Yeah, I mean, I think harmonically, it's at least mostly just Aeolian experience.
Yeah.
So, which is, it's simultaneously so it tells a story and is so minimalist. Like, it's not minimalism, obviously,
No.
but it goes so many places and then stays in those places for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
It really doesn't just let you stay in one place for too long. It's always going to challenge what you think you know about this. And even after, I think we're still at a point where it's not even totally clear what the hell it is we just experienced.
Yeah. It's not really a moment of like you finish and you go, oh, okay, I get it now. It's the song ends and you go, yeah, exactly. It's not even a huh. It is more like that. It's more like a huh. You have to sit on it and like really think about it.
It's a real marinating song. Like, you can't just. This is like the second or third time I've had to go through this, and it's just like, there's just stuff about it that I have to like process through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, this came out last year, I think. 2 years ago now. because they've been working on this album for a very, very long time, and they put out a couple singles from it while they were working on it. And I still keep finding new stuff every time I listen to this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Like a really good movie. Like every time you go back, there's always some little something that's just trickling away in there.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a big part of the beauty about music like this is you come back to it after a while and you're like, huh, I didn't notice that at first. Or you dumb example, but I'm going to use it anyway. Okay, Manuel. So the most recent Sleep Token record that came out last year, right? I think I've listened to that record maybe like 40 times front to back now. It's a great record, but I re-listened to it again front to back about a few days ago just to take some notes for something I'm working on for some research. And as I was listening, there are a couple songs where there's things I'm hearing where I go, wait, where did that come from? Did I just never notice this beforehand? No, I didn't. Oh, crap. That's even with, a song like this. It's definitely going to be a point of, wait, I didn't catch that the first couple times. Or like, oh, when did this get here? Even though it's been there the whole time.
This is definitely something where you can't just go through it the one time. This is probably going to be something we're going to come back to several times throughout the time that we do this podcast. And I feel like it's a good foundation by which it's almost like it's a song where it's not just a song. It's a metric by which we can judge an accordance, the excellence of something else. Mm-hmm. Like really seeing how other things not necessarily measure up in comparison, but for me, this really was like a changing perspective for me in terms of like what music really can be. It just really elevated my sense of what really can be compositional in music, like the delivery of a story of music.
Right. And that, in talking about a delivery of a story, I feel like every piece of music, a song, a tune, a symphony, things like that, everything has its own story to tell. Part of it is up to the listener and their own interpretation of the story, and part of it can be up to whatever medium it follows, if it follows one, or even in the case of, Manuel I don't remember if you took this class or not, but did you ever take programmatic music with Dennis LeClaire?
No.
Ah, man. That
unfortunately,
that was
I did not get enough Dennis LeClaire in my life.
He's a great. We had a professor at Berkeley named Dennis LeClaire. A lovely, lovely man. One of my favorite professors, I think, ever. But I had taken his programmatic music class, and I think when we were in third year or something. But it basically talked about pieces of music and symphonies that followed an actual story. So there was, we talked about the planets. We talked about Symphonie Fantastique. Yep. Yeah. We talked about Scheherazade, one of my personal favorite pieces of all time, and the story that it envelops and the story that it visualizes in its music. And in having the context of that, not really having a visual medium for it, but having the context of that and understanding, okay, well, this is representing this is representing that, it gives you a better idea of the story it's supposed to tell. And in this case, with an actual video for the Earthside song, the story is there. However, the interpretation of the story is still up in the air, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, I like that. I think the whole point of something truly, the whole point of art in general is it's subjective, and if it's clear cut in what it wants to do, then I don't think it would be nearly as long lived as something like this would be. Because, like, if something's like heavy handed in its delivering of a message, it's just not going to stick for me. I need something that I can chew on for years and really like find meaning in it and like really dissect it.
Absolutely.
What's the point otherwise?
Yeah.
And like this is what I try to do with my own music. I mean, obviously Earthside does it much better, but I love music that kind of just takes you into a world and lets you kind of fill in what that means. Like, I know what my music means to me, but I want it to like pull you in somewhere where you want to be, right? So I'm not going to tell you what it is.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of it, is that we're able to do that. We're able to tell a story without directly telling you what the story is, and the intrigue adds so much more to the composition.
I think that's well said.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah,
That's a cool
so
ass.
we wanna wrap
That's
this
a
up?
cool song. Yeah. Any final
That's a
thoughts,
whole
gentlemen?
song right there.
It is. Any final thoughts, gentlemen?
I really just always look forward to the next time that I have my notions challenged, and I look forward to finding that again in the next one.
Yep. Manuel?
I definitely want to look at some point at some of their other work.
Oh, yeah.
Especially on this last album, but even on the first one, a lot of it feels like this, and it does go some really interesting places. So I'd love to chat about that and kind of compare and
Yeah, we will
See what we have to
definitely
say
be
about it.
revisiting Earthside in the future.
You will hear no arguments from here. I mean,
No.
I'm just my body is ready for more prog, and I'm ready for it.
Yeah, I mean, we're always ready for more prog. But yeah, until then, though, this has been the Progcast. You can find us on my YouTube channel for now at Yusuf Rashid. And yeah, we have fun here talking about prog. And for those that do listen, any suggestions you might have, throw them at us. One I want to maybe do in the future, Manny, maybe not for next episode, but eventually, I really want to talk about the most recent Invent Animate album.
yeah.
So that could be a little fun one we do later.
Yeah,
But
we can
that
talk,
until
without a whisper.
then, oh yeah,
Until then, let's plug our stuff. So Yusuf and I are in a death metal band called Necronomicon Ex Mortis. You can listen to our music on the Spotify's and all the other
we
places.
are on all streaming services, I believe, including Bandcamp. You can buy our first and second EP, which are currently out. They are titled Necronomicon Ex Mortis. It's a self-titled EP, and our second EP is entitled Silver Bullet, both available on Bandcamp and on all streaming services where you can find them. We have a full-length album coming in this year. Oh God, I can't wait for that to finally come out. Yeah,
You can find my music under my name, Manuel Barbara. I'm 8-String Alchemy on all social media. Go take a listen.
he writes some really cool stuff. I've looked over it a bunch. I'm on all socials as Yusuf Rashid or Yusuf Rosh, depending on which you find. It's the same person anyway, so it doesn't really make a difference. And yeah, Brendan, do you have anything to plug?
Not yet, but eventually we'll get something going that's cool to throw at people.
somewhere. There you go. Maybe you can start plugging this. Not here.
Not here. That would be an echo chamber.
That'd be a little meta.
Well, have you heard that we also do a podcast called The Prog?
Oh, did you know? Wait, did you see Prog? Like the
Prog.
like. Wait. There's three of us and Prog. Does that mean we are a podcast that talks about prog music?
I mean, I'm led to believe
Maybe,
that
yeah.
particular inclination.
Well, you know what they say. Though his mind is not for rent, don't put him down as arrogant. This has been the Progcast. We'll see you next time. Thank you very much.